The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
The House Judiciary Committee began dissecting the 89-page Senate marijuana legalization bill. It would allow residents 21 and older to purchase half an ounce of the drug for personal use starting in 2018. Grower licenses would cost anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000 depending on the size of operation. Licenses could be issued as early as next year. While the bill passed last month in the Senate, it now must go through several more steps in the House.
Of the states that have already passed this, which one does 241 closest resemble?
The committee leafed through the bill and asked questions during a hearing Wednesday morning.
Some of the other states did legalization. They started to see an increase of explosions and fires and things from people who didn't know what they were doing in their own kitchen, trying to make hash oil.
Vermont's bill would ban the use of solvents like butane for chemical extraction labs like the one discovered just a week ago in a Winooski apartment. Violators would face up to 2 years in prison or thousands in fines. Some say the bill doesn't go far enough.
Whatever we do in this law, I think, has to address that in a forthright way and really have some stiff penalties, or it's just going to allow it to happen more and more or encourage it to happen.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
It's the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
That's what I'm talking about. When you're out there working in the cannabis field, you have to give cannabis a good name. I mean, you're an ambassador. Everybody who has cannabis on or around them, if you smell of cannabis, if you reek of weed, even if you just are notorious for being involved in the medical marijuana community, or just you're a stoner, and everybody knows you're a stoner. You are an ambassador of this community. Everybody is going to associate you with this community, and they'll remember you first. When they think of weed, the first thing they will think of is you. If you are one of these people doing butane extractions in a dangerous way, and it's really not that hard to figure out what's dangerous about butane. I mean, if you're smart enough to figure out, hey, I can take cannabis and make an extract with a solvent, and I can get the solvent all the way out of it so that I'm not consuming something that's carcinogenic. Remember, everybody's going to pay attention to the fact that you're doing this to get high. I can get the cannabis, I can extract this using this chemical solvent, get all the solvent out of there, and then smoke it and possibly market it, depending on where you're at and what's going on. If you're smart enough to figure that out, you should be smart enough to figure out how not to blow yourself up in the process. And because the first thing that happens after you blow yourself up is everybody goes, oh, that stupid stoner. And then instead of you being an ambassador to the marijuana community, you end up becoming the town jester out there on the fence with your pointy hat and the jingly bells that go on your feet. I mean, that's what everybody's going to look at you and remember you for being. And it's not just the guys blowing up houses with butane extractions. I mean, there are other ways. And if you don't know what you're doing, this is like the guy that blows himself up with a gas grill because he didn't know what he was doing. It's not that hard to figure out a gas grill. It's kind of like the stove, but you're outside and it has a cover. That's about the only difference. It really is. The gas grill, instead of having one of those things, instead like a gas stove, has the little grates on top, right? Individual burner grates. You don't put the food directly on them because it's too close to the flame, and also it would fall through. It's not designed to hold food. It's designed to hold something up above the flame, like a pot or a pan. But it's not difficult to figure out how to work either a gas stove or a frickin' barbecue grill. But it's like the guy that with the regular charcoal grill that thinks a good idea to get the charcoal going would be to put some gasoline on there. I'll get it started. You don't know how to start a fire. Get away from there. Pour the gasoline on. Strike the match. And as the singed hair of your mustache and eyebrows and most forward facial hair on your face fall to the ground in embers, and you look like something out of the cartoon world, everybody remembers you for being not the ambassador, but the jester of cannabis. And maybe it's best off that way, I suppose. I don't like it because there's a responsible way to do that. And what you're going to do is make people regulate it to a degree that it's intrusive or expensive or outlaw it. You know, Murphy's Law always applies. If it can go wrong, it will. And if you're working with dangerous chemicals, you better make sure that you're not burning down the house in which you intend to smoke those dabs. Because there's a lot more at stake than your stupid cannabis medicine or your stupid, relaxing enjoyment, whatever it ends up being for you. Yes, it shouldn't be an issue. You should be able to go down and get that extract that was made by a professional in a safe environment and that has no residual left in it. That's the way it should be. But it is not always that way. And I think you should have the ability as a responsible adult to do that in the out of doors where it is a much safer prospect. And then you're going to have people blowing themselves up with, give me a cigarette while we're waiting for this to drain out. Oh, no, that's just so not a good idea. Giant face palm. That's all I got for you. These people in Vermont, as you heard in that news story, coming much closer now to getting legal marijuana done. Right? I mean, I can't believe that the grower licenses would cost between $1,000 and $25,000. I suppose if you got $25K to pony up, you might have a leg up there. If you got 1,000, you can still get in. I don't think 1,000 is too unreasonable. I think 25,000 is a bit much. And it doesn't say what the size of these licenses would be. How many plants can you grow for $1,000? I would really like to know the answer to that question. Wherever you do this law, I think it has to address it that in a forthright way. They're talking about the violators of butane chemical extractions because they're going to be banned there with this bill. They have to look at that in a forthright way and really have some stiff penalties, or it's just going to happen more and more. And encourage it to happen. And I'm not going to disagree necessarily with the people in Vermont. The legislators there, I think, are onto something. There's only two ways to do butane extraction safely. That's with a no-flame, low heat source, like a double bath water. You get the double boiler where but you can't be heating that water. You got to get the water hot and then float the extract container in the hot water bath. But the problem is that butane is going to expand greatly as it turns from a liquid into a solid, or into a gas, I mean. It's going to expand greatly in volume. I mean, better than 25 times the volume. Maybe even more than that. It's going to expand hugely. And when it does, there will be a burn line along that expansion of gas that is ignitable. And when it does, and the oxygen mixture within the rest of that gas reaches the right percentage, 9 to 11%, it's going to cause a tremendous explosion that is only as powerful as the butane you released. And I'll just give you an example of how powerful liquid butane is. Because it's relative to you. It's something you can put your hand in your pocket and feel. That Bic lighter with that little bit of butane in there. You see, it's not very much butane. It's a very small amount. Less than a fluid ounce. It might even say right on the side of the Bic lighter how many fluid ounces of butane is in there. I'm looking at one now. It's less than a shot glass. What's a shot glass? 2 ounces? So it's about an ounce. About an ounce of liquid butane. That butane in there, in that little Bic lighter, is as powerful as a stick of dynamite when it's expanded to a gas and lit to blow up. A stick of dynamite just in that little tiny bit of butane. That's how much explosive force it has. I'm not a scientist. I'm nobody special. I just looked it up. It ain't hard. Don't be stupid. When you're doing the extracts or making the extracts for medibles or doing this processing for the consumption of patients or other people, don't be stupid. It's not worth it. Do it outside in a safe way. The only other safe way, and you got to do it without a flame, no source of flame or spark. If you do it on a warm day, it's better. If it's warm outside, it's going to work. You don't even need the double bath, the double boiler. You don't even need, it'll just boil off by itself. It'll evaporate on its own. And you still have to introduce some heat, but now it's safety because all the fuel's gone. Once it's all thick and pasty, it is much less volatile and not explosive at all. It'll still catch fire, so will that oil. But getting high or getting your medibles or getting your medication fix is not worth blowing up your house for or damaging the reputation of the neighbors. You're getting the full melt.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law at RudoyLaw.com. RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana and up-to-date news. That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. All right, so our toll-free phone lines are sponsored by The No Smell Bags at No Smell Bags, and actually it's nosmell.com. If we're talking about the candlelight bags, 844-420-TALK is the phone number. Leave that phone number open for people to call and interject. The phone lines are kind of useless right now when the live audience is really small. Got a fix coming up for that, and it is pretty awesome, in fact. I'm just going to see if I can I play this for you? This is, I'm going to ramp up the live audience a little bit with a mobile app. I'm hoping to get released. It should be ready for release. It should drop in the stores, in the app stores, both for Google Play and iOS devices in the Apple App Store. This is just some test audio. This was coming out of the live streamer. This is just goofy. I think you can hear me on the phone in the background. Oh, it's just, hang on. Here it's playing. See, I'm on the phone in the background. It almost sounds like NASA.
I'm shutting the streamer off, too.
Yeah, he's shutting the streamer up. Yeah, just a little test, a little audio test. That's of the live stream. That was just through a computer microphone, and you know, obviously you can hear me through the phone at his ear. But that will soon be replaced by live show audio instead of that. And this is coming to a mobile app, which not only I will be appearing on with this program, but also a bunch of other programmers from around the country. A lot of them. Big names, big people, all lined up, ready to come on the app. We're in testing phase now. In fact, I plan on I'm going to make a video demo of the app for one organization that's coming on. Oh, they're big names. I can't tell you about them yet. And then another one I think I might be able to just give, because he's already agreed to come on. And it's not just a he. I mean, it's his whole network. Because they don't have a mobile solution, a mobile streaming solution. And this thing does push notifications. If you subscribe to a particular show, you can be notified when they're on live about what they're talking about. Open it up right to the app. Boom, boom, boom. 24/7, 365, cannabis news, entertainment, and lifestyle right there in one place. And the Wax app is the working title of this application, which will be free, incidentally, to download. And also for the invited broadcasters onto the platform, because you just cannot go there and create an account and just start broadcasting. This is what sets this app apart from the others. We're only letting on those people who know what they're doing and do it well and have an audience to show for it. Those are the ones going on this app. We may, also thinking about opening this up to syndicated distribution of printed content. Nobody's doing that yet. So we'll be releasing this pretty soon in at least its skeletal form, in its basic function form, beginning of April. I'm hoping to announce to you a date soon which you can go and download both versions of this app. It's currently going, we're going to be putting the broadcasters on starting tonight in the test environment, just so that we can fully real-world test it. But once we get a couple of 24/7 streamers on there, so you'll have more than one channel of 24/7 content to pick from. And then other individual broadcasters coming live. And it probably won't be more than, maybe 15 or 20 tops. But they're the best. They're the top. They're the cream of the crop. They're the ones you want to hear. And that's why we're putting them in one place for you. And so they can alert that's what'll fix me with the live audience. Because, people, I don't have a way to notify the listeners of this program when we're on, other than to say, hey, listen for us then. 7 to 8 Eastern time. That's the only way we can alert people to when we're on. So if you happen to be available during that time, and if you happen to get the message, which is usually most often a Facebook message, on my personal site, not on the Full Melt's website, or not on the Full Melt show site, which it should be. But it's only on my personal Facebook profile. It always goes over there. Every time we go on the air, it puts a notification there. But that's all we got to go with right now. That's all we're working with. If you got the mobile app, it's in your pocket every time we go live. Bloop! It shows up on your phone. Bloop! Gives you that notice. What's that sound that it makes? Doodalunk! That sound. There should be a name for that. Doodalunk sound. But it'll notify you of only the shows that you subscribe to. You could subscribe to all of them if you wanted. I wouldn't do that because it would make it go off all the time. But you could, subscribe to the shows that you like. And then when they come on, you'll get notified when they're live. And then that way you can participate live because some of these guys have gangbuster programs with a lot of other people. And we'll start ramping up program content now that I can start focusing on this show again instead of so much on that crazy mobile app. But so I don't even know if it's worth doing this part. But it does audio and video. So that was a piece of some live old podcast material that was just a test run on the podcast. But here's some full motion video. And this is on the I'm playing with the iOS test version of the app right now. You can't see the video, but it is full HTML5 H.264 high definition video in full fidelity audio. This is just a cartoon thing that I'm playing here now. You're only hearing the audio. Somebody really worked hard on this video, though, to make this. It's called the Big Buck Bunny. It's just test video to make sure that the thing is going to stream it right. I can't tell you how incredibly complex putting all that crap together is. Oh, my God. 3 years of learning, building, tearing down, starting over, learning again, burning a bridge, building it again. Oh, my God. Seems like it's taken forever. I mean, it's quicker to birth an elephant than to do this. You're learning it from the ground up. But I'm happy to say that we're at the tail end of that big endeavor. In fact, I would say, tonight we're crowning on that birth. Definitely crowning. It might be a 2-week labor process because it's going to take that long to get the app approved through the iOS people at Apple. To go, those guys have a microscope and a bright light. Every line of code. Oh, you got to take out. There's some stuff over here that's got to get changed. You got to fix that and do this over here. Sometimes when you're working in that environment, you want to bang your head against the wall. Have you ever been working with your computer and it just won't do what you want it to do? Or it froze after you did a bunch of work and now it won't remember any of that work? Yeah, try doing that all day, every day for 3 years. Until you finally kickstarted it and it's working. But it's really been beautifully crafted, professionally constructed. And now we're going to pretty some things up and get it launched in basic form and then add some new features to it coming later. So if you are local here, oh boy, I really wish I should. I'm awfully tempted. See, I don't have the peripheral. I guess I might be able. I just thought of something. So the guy that does our software for the guy that does all that incredible code work because he's just a genius. Well, I can't tell you how huge this thing is that we've created. You'll know about it. You'll know about it in soon enough time. We didn't work on this for 3 years for nothing. It's not going to go by the wayside at this point. That guy left a computer here before he took off on the road. He's off on the road right now. And that computer, I can put the hardware in that does the multi-camera thing. And then I might be able to at least get 1 or 2 cameras up and running to broadcast the hash bash from. And then I could stream to Ustream and to Spreaker and to the mobile app all at the same time and give you a visual play on what we're doing on the air. So you can see what's happening out at our live event right there on the mobile app as we do the launch of the mobile app. It would be nice to have some video stuff going out at a live venue. And then you'll start to see more and more of that stuff as we get these other broadcasters out at these live events happening all over the country, because they're showing up at these places and doing some tremendous programming from cannabis venues, all of it entertaining and enriching and bone tickling. So look forward to this happy place, because it is coming, and it is coming very soon. I can say with great assurance. For a while there, I was like, oh, man. Because when we started this process 3 years ago, I thought, okay, 6 months worth of development. We'll kick this around for a while. We'll spend some money on it, and we'll get it into the app stores. You multiply that by 6, add a whole bunch of extra costs, and then that's where we're at now. So we'll see, and then we'll start to update it with new features and new functions and new appearances and all that kind of stuff. But I'm very happy to announce the release of the application, duly dubbed right now, again, the Wax app. They're going to call it something else. I think I want to call it Airwax. That's what I think I want to do, is call it Airwax. I don't know why, it just rings to me. Maybe it doesn't. It kind of has to grow on you, though. You just say Airwax, it sounds like earwax, so that's why it rings a bell. But it kind of describes, the two basic parts of what it is. It's content on the air, both video and audio, about cannabis-related stuff. So you got the Wax stack. Pretty sure that'll be self-explanatory. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, we should have some Full Melt show shirts out at the Hash Bash available for your purchase. They will be Hash Bash shirts with that year's, this year, 2016. So it'll be Hash Bash 2016. And our show logo on the back. So the Hash Bash on the front, show logo on the back. Should be pretty awesome. And we're looking forward to it. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that, A, we can get the app released to you so you can start using it, because we can test and play with it in private all we want. It's just our own private squeeze toy. It means nothing. It has no usefulness or purpose unless you can use it and download it. And I'm hoping to get that into the stores for both iOS and Android, and hopefully in the future even Windows phones by the first two by April 2. So we really got to get that thing submitted quickly, because I think it takes about 8 to 10 days to show up in the store, and Apple's likely to kick it back and make us resubmit it. They're just really good at doing that. We'll see what happens. It's the first time we hand created an app and sent it for approval to the iOS people. It hasn't been submitted yet. I think it's going to go into submission probably by Saturday, if everything works as planned. If the schedule from here on out goes as planned, and I think it's going to. So what's coming up on the rest of the program? Lots of other stuff to talk about in the news today. Amongst the stories, we're talking about Salem, Oregon, marijuana dispensary getting an okay there. That's not so much big news. Why is that the number one story? That's the number one Google story. New requirements may disrupt Oregon marijuana extracts industry. Kind of by the wayside. What I want to talk to you about when we come back after the break is a story from Extract. Where does the Supreme Court of the United States nominee Merrick Garland stand on marijuana policy? Want to cover that in detail. There's a story from NPR about how potent is that pot brownie. Dry ice and a blender might crack the case. So they're going to tell you how much dopus is in the is in the snackus. How to invest in marijuana legalization? Meh. I mean, this isn't a Motley Fool story. It's actually a U.S. News and World Report story, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory and probably quite risky yet. Oregon medical marijuana officials answer questions about new plant limits and rules. So they've got a Q&A session posted at OregonLive.com. In Champlain, Illinois, House Judiciary Committee hears a marijuana bill. Wait a minute, Champlain? It's got to be. Is this? Oh, I'm sorry. That was Vermont. We already did that story at the beginning of the newscast. The Vermont story. Marijuana news update. Teen. So this is something else we'll talk about. In Pennsylvania, Cindy Mae Meehan, who's been fighting to access medical marijuana for her intractable epilepsy, working there so hard as a poster child with severe epilepsy, seeking medical marijuana has passed away, sadly, today, only at the young age of 13. She met her maker, according to the story, while resting on her father's arms inside their Augusta home. According to CBS News, Cindy Mae Meehan, along with her mother, has been fighting for medical marijuana legalization. She suffered from Dravet syndrome, which is an extreme case of epilepsy. The epileptic seizures affected her since she was 10 months old. Given all kinds of epileptic drugs, 23 different varieties, in fact, none of them, even though they're FDA approved, worked. They left her in a wheelchair and she was unable to move. After trying out several medications, her neurologist advised her mother to try out medical marijuana. Though it may be a positive option, Susan and Cindy Mae need to look for a state wherein the medication is legal. So this is the deal. You're gonna see more of this happen, unfortunately. Until people come to the conclusion, the clear understanding that marijuana is not the boogeyman. Intractable epilepsy is. HIV/AIDS is. Cancer is. Chronic pain is. Autism and muscular dystrophy and ALS are the boogeyman. And the thing that's been dressed up and labeled and called and poked and prodded as the boogeyman and demonized so terribly is often the answer for these people with these chronic issues. Often it's the only answer left available to them. And it's not only the only answer, it's not just comfort and soothing, it's effective. It's reversing conditions. It's stopping seizures. It's taking cancer away. It is stopping pain in people. It's an amazing plant. Amazing products can be made from it, and we're working to fight the federal government on making them available to you.
I've seen things no man should bear, and those that every man should dare. From the beaches of Normandy to the far reaches of the earth. In my life, I have lived millions of lives. I've outrun robots and danced with dinosaurs. I've faced the faces of fear and fortitude and witnessed great beauty in the making. I've kept the company of kings and queens, but I'm no royalty or saint. I've traveled, trekked, wandered, and roamed, only to find myself right where I belong.
Jeep. See your authorized Jeep retailer for details on how you can become a Jeep owner.
We asked people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dordt Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570. Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Dordt Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Today's legal story brought to you by David Rudoy at rudoylaw.com. You know, there's a big thing coming up here before the Supreme Court when it decides to hear the case, because it actually has agreed to hear the case, and it probably would have been being heard by now if it weren't for the fact that Justice Antonin Scalia passed away. And since that occurrence and his funeral and the month that's passed in the interim, it's been determined that by the Supreme Court that they're not going to hear the arguments on this case affecting marijuana on a wide scale. This whole legalization thing by states might blow up in our faces if the Supreme Court rules that the United States cannot simply idly sit by and watch states break federal law by allowing, creating, crafting rules and regulations for its existence and commerce in adjacent states to those who still subscribe to its prohibition. And what I mean by that is, just to put this in a less wordy way, you've got Nebraska and Kansas knocking on the door on the border of Colorado saying, look, your weed's spilling over into our borders. It's still illegal here. It's not only costing us money, but, you know, we still believe that weed is dangerous and that you're endangering our citizens. But will you please stop selling the weed and growing it and proliferating? Please stop breaking the federal law because it's impacting us, your neighbor state, or in this case, states. Both these states have taken the same position. This is not a situation that has been taken up by a previous court, right? Because the only court authorized to hear cases between states is indeed the Supreme Court. Now, if this was an individual or an entity, a company or a person with a beef against some other company or other person or even a state, they would have to bring an action in a court of law starting at the bottom. Say if you're going to bring a federal action based on federal law, you would bring it in U.S. District Court if it's a civil action. And I guess you could take some criminal actions there too. But District Court is where you would take your civil action. And then, you know, depending on how that went, then it would get appealed, and then it would go up through the various steps of the appeals courts until it gets to the Supreme Court should they decide to take it up. In this instance, they don't get any of those steps in advance. They have the argument, the basic, complaint is filed indeed directly with the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court's agreed to hear the argument. But again, since it's a divided court and they already know they're divided on this issue to some extent without discussing it, the court didn't want to take the opportunity to hear the case and be divided on it because they're, in the instance of any other case they might hear while that ninth seat lays vacant, and there was a tie, a split decision, 4 judges for and 4 judges against, which is currently what we've got in most controversial cases. They're split down party lines, 4 for, 4 against. This is why there are 9 people on the Supreme Court. There's always a tiebreaker somewhere in the event that comes up, and it often does. In the event that, like if I was the entity or the person or suing another state, or suing a state, maybe even your own state, and this case was being heard now, you've taken it through all the appeals processes, and you get to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has the ability, although it's not a scholarly good thing to do, they have the ability to hear this case between Colorado, who's defending this issue, and Kansas and Nebraska, who are complainants on this issue. They have the ability to hear this argument, this other argument that if you're taking the state to court, they have the ability to hear that argument absent the tiebreaker, because in the event that they have a tie on that issue, the lower court's ruling is the law of the land, the final law of the land, incidentally. So whatever the appeals court said, the last appeals court, the federal appeals court, whatever that court decided at the end of the day would be the new rule of law, because it can't go beyond the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court split, and that means the case indeed relies on the previous adjudication, which is in the former appeals court. In the case of Kansas and Nebraska and Colorado going directly to the Supreme Court, if they split on that issue, there is no lower advice to fall back on. Zero. So this case is really important, and because it's really important, and we're talking about commerce here. We're talking about the future of medical cannabis being legal until the federal government authorizes it across the board, which I suggest may well occur if indeed the Supreme Court rules against Colorado on this issue, and I don't think they will. In fact, many scholars, including our own president and all of his legal team, have urged Kansas and Nebraska to drop their suit, to step away from this. This is a fight they don't want to pick, because they believe that once this is heard, that you've got a border there. And if you don't like what's going on across the border, despite federal law, you can't rely on the federal law to come and protect your border. Not from another state. If your border was with Mexico or Canada, you could rely on the federal government coming to protect that border. But they're not going to come in and protect the borders between states unless it relates to commerce. And that's why the question is before the Supreme Court. So right now, the question is, the guy who's been proposed to replace currently Antonin Scalia is a moderate person. His name is Merrick Garland. And the story from extract.suntimes.com. So this is part of the Sun-Times network, like as in Chicago Sun-Times. Where does the SCOTUS nominee Merrick Garland stand on marijuana policy? President Obama nominated centrist appeals court judge Merrick Garland to the U.S. Supreme Court Wednesday. If confirmed, Garland would fill the seat left vacant by late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who died in February. The president said Judge Garland is, quote, widely recognized not only as one of America's sharpest legal minds, but someone who brings to his work a spirit of decency, modesty, integrity, even-handedness, and excellence. These qualities and his long commitment to public service have earned him the respect and admiration from leaders from both sides of the aisle. Justice Scalia was no great friend to marijuana reform, despite his originalist interpretation of constitutional liberties. But where does Judge Garland stand on marijuana policy reform? Here's what we know. In 2012-2013, Garland was one of the three judges who presided over a case brought forward by the medical marijuana advocacy group Americans for Safe Access, which sought to reschedule marijuana under the DEA administration's Controlled Substance Act, or the DEA's Controlled Substances Act. Marijuana is currently classified as a Schedule I drug defined by the DEA as the most dangerous of all drugs with no medical use and, quote, potentially severe psychological or physical dependence, end quote. Americans for Safe Access sought to reschedule marijuana so more research could be done on the medical benefits and potential medical applications for cannabis. The DEA argued that not enough scientific evidence existed to justify rescheduling the drug. So it's a catch-22, right? This is a fairly hypocritical argument because marijuana's status as a Schedule I drug is precisely what has prevented scientists from conducting comprehensive research on its potential medical uses. That is the catch-22. In any case, a Justice Department lawyer told the 3-judge panel the federal government was convinced marijuana is a dangerous drug, and the court ruled in favor of the DEA as reported by the LA Times. Per the LA Times, quote, "We don't have to defer to their judgment," end quote, "on what the medical studies show," asked Judge Merrick Garland. "We're not scientists, they are." Boy, that says a lot right there, doesn't it? Say that again. According to the LA Times, on this case where we talked about marijuana, in this 3-judge panel, which eventually ruled against Americans for Safe Access, or ASA, don't we have to defer to their judgment, end quote, on what the medical studies show, asked Judge Merrick Garland. "We're not scientists, they are." Although Garland sided with the DEA in that case, some marijuana advocates see promise in his deference to scientific evidence. Per Vice News, several marijuana advocates praised Garland on Wednesday as a sensible pick for the high court, arguing that his reliance on science is a positive for the industry. So I guess that's painting the best face on the argument. You're likely to see because the movement on getting this done is to take this away from police and prosecutors as a way to just tax people indiscriminately, because that's what they're doing, often charging people or not charging them, mostly taking their money and their assets of any kind, your house, your car, whatever you got, a luxury home, a boat. Maybe it's just a shack in the woods. They'll take it all. Your bank accounts, your credit cards, any computers, anything of value that they can resell, they'll take it. Under the idea that marijuana is a Schedule I drug, it is the worst of the worst. It's all nonsense. It's all a big lie. The federal government didn't create that lie to take your money. They just found a way to take your money once it was created. It was created for industry. And I'm just going to remind you once again, the tone has always been, if you want to know the truth about policy of any kind in America, all you've got to do is follow the money. And sometimes people will put up roadblocks and blinds and try and put sunglasses on you and put stuff behind the sunglasses so you can't see that pathway of when you're trying to follow that money. They don't want you to see where it's coming from because they're the ones at the end of the day raking home that money, and they're doing it by lying to people like you and me.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The NoSmell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a NoSmell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about NoSmell technology at NoSmell.com.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
There ain't no secrets anymore.
Coming back from the break.
My name's been
working towards the summertime.
Hook outside your door, just to know.
Looking forward to Hash Bash. All the goodies that come with it. Got the Cannabis Cup coming to town. There's the THC Expo happening here locally. Warehouse Theater sometime, I think it's in April this year. They've always held it at the end of March. Usually that's the beginning of what ends up being a fabulous marijuana summer. And I think this year is going to bring a lot of change. It already has, in fact, hasn't it? I mean, the Cannabis Cup in Colorado, in Denver, the U.S. Cannabis Cup was first postponed and then canceled. I mean, terrible state of affairs there. It's part of the change that's happening. And, you know, change is what makes people uncomfortable. People are creatures of habit. People become used to things. They become expecting. So when you have a situation where people become expecting of people tend to take things for granted after a while. So I would suggest a good example might be that California took for granted that marijuana is mainstream and legal. None of that's true. I mean, it's quasi-legal. Yeah, you can go in and say you got headaches and stuff and pretty easily fool the system by talking to a less than qualified expert about the subject and having them prescribe to you or offer you a method by which you can legally obtain cannabis. There's no question about that. But they haven't legalized it there yet, have they? People are still going to jail in California. Doors are still getting knocked down. People's gardens are still getting taken. It's much older hat now, 20 years after its inception in 1996, but it's still happening 20 years later. And I guess my point is that it's been 20 years of constant change. Hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait in California alone. I would also argue that the people of Denver, of Colorado, specifically the epicenter of marijuana capitalism, be it medical or otherwise, is Denver. And I think many people in Denver have although been good stewards of the marijuana message and commerce and have been valiant, what I would call prospectors, even pioneers of legal cannabis in the 21st century in this country. And it's really easy to become complacent, to become, under-concerned, because cannabis is so prevalent in that place. It's so prevalent that people sometimes get the idea that, okay, it's all right if I grow some plants the government's not paying attention to. It's okay if I've got this, little grow going on, and I sell some to this guy and some to that guy and some of my friends. They're just my friends. It's all still illegal. None of that is allowed. And people are going through and getting busted. These private gardens that aren't legal. They aren't registered. They're not playing by the rules of the system. They're getting closed down. And often criminal charges are levied. The war is never over. Your freedom isn't permanent. Your freedom of speech, your civil rights, the things that we've become accustomed to in this country are not something you can take for granted, no more than Denver could take for granted the idea that cannabis is legal. It cannot. These freedoms, once they're obtained, and we obtained most of our freedoms in the Revolutionary War. Most of them were achieved then. And then we defended that freedom. And that's my point ultimately. That doesn't matter if you're California and you started this as the godfather of the marijuana movement in modern day times 20 years ago. It doesn't matter. You still don't have legal cannabis in California, although I believe it will become legal this year. But it took 20 years. I don't see that that's going to happen again in other states. I think that's the first state. That's a great example. But even in Denver or in Colorado as a whole, they're still fighting about issues and trying to change and modify this in both directions. The police and prosecutors and government officials and regulators and the namby-pamby naysayers is what I like to call them, the ones that are like, not in my backyard. I want this available, but I don't want it here. And I don't want it there. Well, you want two things that are juxtaposed to each other. You don't win that argument. It's still something being battled. And it's going to go on for quite some time, even in places like Colorado. Decades are going to have to go by before you're not seeing this fight continue in some form or another, in some place across the country. For crying out loud, the 18th Amendment was repealed when? 1930 what? Was it 1? I think it was 31. So 31, 41, 51, 61, 71, 81, 91. There's 60 years right there. 2001, there's 70 years. 2011, there's 80 years. We're coming up on, it's almost 90 years. It's nearly 100 years later. And we're still fighting about alcohol in some places. And we're still tweaking about that law. The drunk driving cases, and the drunk driving issues. And then you got the there's nobody saying you should drink and drive, yet people do. They're encouraged to go to places in their vehicles where they then consume large amounts of alcohol and then drive away, killing themselves and others. It happens routinely. But the answer to that question we learned long ago wasn't to ban the alcohol. It was to regulate the alcohol and find answers to these questions that were responsible ones, that were effective and not expensive. And so that's where we're going now. There is this story I wanted to briefly touch on because I think it's so interesting. Pot-infused edibles are big sellers in states that have legalized. This is part of that argument that have legalized. The problem is it's been tough to measure and regulate the potency of these ganja-based gummy bears, lollies, and brownies. Studies have found that many edible marijuana products in the market contain lower or higher concentrates of THC and other cannabinoids than advertised. And that's bad news for consumers. It causes problems down the line. Paraphrasing. While state officials and independent testing labs are making a big effort to regulate the quality of edibles, these products aren't so easy to study. You see, when we've got these things with sugars and fats, they gum up lab equipment, and often the THC is not evenly distributed throughout the food, so testers can't be sure that they've even got accurate results without studying large amounts of the product, which can be time-consuming. So they figured out a way to use dry ice to freeze and then grind these things into a homogeneous product that doesn't gum up their equipment. They freeze dry it with dry ice or liquid nitrogen, and then they grind it into a powder. And so they're finding ways to work with sticky substances like gummy bears and peanut butter, which are especially difficult to analyze using traditional methods. So this is a responsible, creative, scientific, Merrick Garland way of answering a legitimate question, a legitimate problem with a legitimate solution. Rather than saying we're going to pass laws that outlaw this because we have no way of testing them, they found a way to accurately measure and test these products for content, for safety, for its homogeneousness. So it's even and consistent throughout. That's what people want. That's what they deserve. And that's ultimately what we're going to end up with when we get to the end of this war on drugs and the war on marijuana, both medical and retail. See you tomorrow.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.